What is the difference between secular and regular clergy, and between major and minor orders? If archbishops rank higher than bishops, why is the Pope only a bishop, the Bishop of Rome? And when did the College of Cardinals become a baseball team? These and other questions will be answered right after this. I am Professor Jerome Arkenberg, and I have been teaching a wide variety of history courses at colleges across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the difference between secular and regular clergy, the difference between major and minor orders, the hierarchy of the medieval church, and the duties of each rank in the medieval church. At the end, I'll have the wrap-up quote on this video. But first, make sure to click like, share, and subscribe, and that little bell thingy, so I can continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. The daily work of enforcing Catholic beliefs fell into the hands of the secular clergy, the bishops and clergy who live in the saeculum, the Latin word for world, at a time when seminaries were nearly non-existent. The Patriarch of Rome, or the Pope, headed a hierarchical church after the Papal Revolution, and the prestige of heading the Diocese of Imperial Rome, founded by St. Peter himself, to whom, the Gospel said, Christ gave the, quote-unquote, keys to the kingdom of heaven, gave the Bishop of Rome a special place in Christianity. The cardinals, with their own... Oh, wait a minute. I think I've got the wrong cardinals here. Hold on. That's better. The cardinals, with their own internal hierarchy, which they retain to this day, of cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons, along with lay cardinals who could be married, and that no longer exists, began as assistants to the popes in running the 5 great basilicas of Rome. But by the 13th century, they had the right to elect the pope in a secret conclave and serve as the pope's special advisors. The bishop, who can also hold additional titles, for example, archbishop, cardinal, pope, patriarch, were the heart of the church. Why? Well, they ran diocesan synods. They ran law courts, enforcing church law and doctrine. They upheld the church's interests against both lay authorities and interests, and were responsible for teaching church doctrine and ensuring ritual and practices were done properly by the priest in their diocese. Plus, the 2 sacraments of confirmation and holy orders, if you don't know, being the ability to make another priest, could only be performed by a bishop. The bishop must say Mass every Sunday and holy day, pray for his flock, and have a special concern for his priest, listening to them, using them as counselors, ensuring that they are provided for in every way, and defending their rights, the rights against lay authorities. So here we have the bishop blessing lepers, holding a synod. A synod is where think of it as a convention, where all the priests and deacons and, of course, come together with the bishop in a synod, not to mostly have fun, but to discuss church matters. Of course, here is the bishop preaching. I don't believe they had any whoopee cushions or water balloons at the synods. Just as the popes had the cardinals to help run the basilicas in Rome, so each bishop had his own clergy, the Cathedral Canons. That's, students always get confused. That's, you see it here, C-A-N-O-N, one N. It's not the canon that goes boom. The Cathedral Canons who aided them in running the bishop's own church, his Cathedral Church. The cathedral was not just a large church, but simply the church in which the bishop had his cathedra, the Latin word for throne. In other words, it was his headquarters church. Because, of course, it was his headquarters church, all the bishops would vie with each other and with their predecessors and probably their successors to build the most magnificent church of all time. So they do tend to be large, but they are intended to be large enough so that the town's entire population can fit inside them. In the Middle Ages, that was pretty easy to do. The priest was the most important of all the clergy, since he, and again, only men could be priests to the present day, since he alone had daily contact with the laity, the non-clergy. And all kinds of priests existed, from illiterate, which if you think about it is very bad, considering the entire religion is based on a book, the Bible, to highly educated, very devout to not devout at all, very pure to totally corrupt, caring to indolent. Priests had to say Mass daily, but usually were prevented from saying Mass more than 3 times a day. Anyway, they would also perform baptisms and marriages. They would hear confession and assign penance. They gave last rites and performed burials. As you see here, here's the priest giving last rites. There he is, communion. And to ensure the host does not fall on the floor, these 2 acolytes are holding up a towel or a sheet. Here, of course, burying some poor medieval person. Rest in peace. While celibacy was encouraged, up to the year 1100 AD, more or less, priests could marry, and many did. But concerns over ritual purity and nepotism, that priests, like everyone else in the Middle Ages, wanted to pass on their land, their job, to their children, their son. And just because your father is a great priest doesn't mean that you will be. But there is also a section in the Old Testament that said that Jewish priests could not do the ritual at the temple in Jerusalem if they had had sex within 2 weeks. And of course, since priests had to say Mass every day, clearly they couldn't be married. Though once many of these priests were shorn of their wives, so to speak, some nonetheless kept concubines or frequented prostitutes. Below bishops and priests were clerics and minor orders. From top to bottom, as you kind of see here, this is the deacon or sub-deacon, then the acolyte, lectors, exorcist, and the porter or Ostiarius. None of them had to be celibate, and none of them were considered actual clergy, though they were normally steps on the path to ordination. So in other words, if you're in minor orders, you could be married. You could have children. I should mention, for all the Catholic clergy to this day, you don't have to be a virgin to be a clergyman or clergywoman. So nuns and sisters don't have to be virgins to begin with, nor do priests or monks or friars or bishops or even the Pope need to be a virgin. However, when you take your vow, The vow includes celibacy, and from that point onwards, you are supposed to be celibate. But you could be a father, you could be a grandfather, you could have had the wildest sowing of oats of all time, and yet you can still even be a priest, a bishop, the Patriarch of Rome. The porter, or Ostiarius, which is the Latin term, was the lowest of the minor orders. He would open and close the doors of the church, the sacristy, and the baptistry. He was in charge of ringing the church bell and ensured that only Catholics in good standing were allowed into the church during Mass. So the porter here would be this guy right here. Next up came the exorcist, who only performed an exorcism for adult converts before their baptism. Otherwise, real exorcism, driving out demons, could only be performed by a priest. And here you see many demons. Apparently, there were many demons in the Middle Ages being exorcised. Hopefully nobody's head spun around. The next in order was the Lector, who, during Mass, would read selections from the Bible other than the Gospels, because only the priest could read from the Gospels. So here you see the Lector. The next highest is the Acolyte. In later times, they might be the Sub-deacon. They would prepare the altar and the sacred vessels, assist the priest and deacon at Mass, and help distribute communion to the people. Some of these functions today are done by altar boys or altar girls, but altar boys and altar girls did not exist in the Middle Ages. So you see here the bishop blessing the new acolytes. Here, of course, 2 acolytes helping a priest out. The deacon, who assists the priest in pastoral and administrative duties, including preaching and teaching, proclaiming the gospel during Mass, assisting with the Eucharist, and serving the poor and outcast, is technically a cleric, but unlike priests and bishops, can be married as long as they do so before they are ordained as deacons. The wrap-up quote. There was a good man of religion too, a country parson, poor, I warrant you. But rich he was in holy thought and work. He was a learned man also, a clerk, who Christ's own gospel truly sought to preach. Devoutly his parishioners would he teach. Wide was his parish, houses far asunder, but never did he fail for rain or thunder, in sickness or in sin, or any state, to visit to the farthest, small and great, going afoot. And holy though he was and virtuous, to sinners he was not impiteous, nor haughty in his speech, nor too divine, but in all teaching prudent and benign. Chaucer, 1380. Let me know what you think of this quote in the comment section below. Also, what you liked about this video and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to click like, share, and subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos. And click on that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.